This is my second attempt at this, so I'm a little flustered, so bear with me while I try to read this. This is me asking ChatGPT some important questions about Lucis trust. What are the initiation rituals in Alice Bailey's writings? Please simplify it step by step so it is easy for the mind to comprehend. I have vision problems right now, so I might have to reread and blink. Okay. Alice Bailey's writings describe initiation as a series of stages of spiritual development rather than a single ritual or ceremony. According to Bailey, the process is overseen by a spiritual hierarchy, including beings she calls the Masters and the Christ, and is meant to transform a person's consciousness. While many readers interpret this symbolically, Bailey presents it as a literal esoteric process. Here's a simplified overview of Bailey's framework, descriptive, not an endorsement. Before the initiation, preparation. Before someone is considered ready, Bailey says they spend years or even lifetimes preparing by learning self-discipline, having vision problems, learning self-discipline, serving humanity instead of living only for themselves, practicing meditation, studying esoteric teachings, learning to control emotions and desires, developing what she calls the soul rather than the personality. She believed the personality had three parts: physical body, emotional body, mental body. The goal is to bring all three under the guidance of the soul. First initiation. Theme: birth of the Christ consciousness. Bailey uses the biblical story of Jesus' birth as a symbol. The initiate supposedly begins living from the soul, controls many physical appetites, starts serving humanity consistently, places spiritual life above material life. Think of it as the soul begins to take charge instead of the ego. I have to keep blinking. Second initiation. Theme: baptism. Now the focus shifts to emotions. The initiate supposedly learns to stay calm under pressure, control fear, control anger, overcome emotional attachments, develop compassion. Bailey believed the emotional nature becomes purified. You might hear background noise, sorry about that. Third initiation. Theme: transfiguration. Now the mind is transformed. The initiate supposedly understands spiritual laws, thinks more universally, has less personal ambition, identifies with humanity rather than themselves. Bailey considered this an extremely important milestone. She says this is when the soul completely dominates the personality. I'm going to kind of read a little faster if I can. Fourth initiation. Theme: crucifixion of renunciation. This is one of Bailey's most difficult stages. According to her, the initiate gives up attachment to, recognition, personal identity, possessions, status, individual desires. She calls this a complete surrender to what she refers to as the divine plan. Fifth initiation. Theme: resurrection. At this point, Bailey says the person becomes a master of wisdom. According to her teachings, they have completed ordinary human evolution, become able to guide humanity, join the spiritual hierarchy. This is where Bailey places figures such as Master DK, Kutumi, and Moria. Higher initiations, 6th through 9th. Beyond this, Bailey describes increasingly cosmic levels of development. She says initiates eventually work with planetary evolution, direct spiritual energies, help guide nations and civilizations, eventually leave Earth for work elsewhere in the universe. These ideas become highly symbolic and metaphysical. I'm not going to read, I'll just let you look at all that. How does someone supposedly reach these stages? Bailey repeatedly emphasizes that initiation is not achieved by performing a specific ceremony. Instead, she says it comes through a gradual path that includes meditation, esoteric study, service to humanity, character development, group work, obedience to what she calls the soul's purpose, eventually recognition by the spiritual hierarchy. In her writings, the initiation ceremony itself is portrayed as a confirmation of inner spiritual growth, not the cause of it. A note from a critical perspective. Many Christian researchers and critics point out that Bailey reinterprets biblical events such as the birth, baptism, transfiguration, crucifixion, and resurrection as stages in an esoteric initiation process rather than as unique historical events centered on Jesus. This reinterpretation is one of the major theological differences between Bailey's teachings and historic Christianity. If your broader research is focused on organizations such as Lucis Trust, I'm going to skip past. I have to kind of hurry through this. I'm limited on time. This is my second time doing this. Briefly explain these topics in bullet point format. Alice Bailey's connection with Lucis Trust, the original name of Lucis Trust and who created it, Lucis Trust connection with the United Nations, the Lucis Trust disciples, world goodwill, and world servers. The disciples, world servers, world goodwill connection to the UN connection to the building or transformation of cities. Finally, explain who is the name at the very top of the hierarchy of the Lucis Trust, Ascended Masters. What are the different names of this being throughout the world? Here's a simplified overview of these topics. I've separated what is documented from interpretations, since some claims are well supported by primary sources while others are debated. Alice Bailey's connection with Lucis Trust. Alice Bailey, 1880 to 1949, was an esoteric author. She claimed many of her books were telepathically dictated by a being she called Dual Cool, Master DK. I may be saying that wrong. In 1922, she and her husband Foster Bailey founded an organization to publish these teachings. Today, that organization is known as Lucis Trust. Lucis Trust continues to publish Bailey's work, publish Bailey's books, and promote meditation, spiritual education, and the concept of a coming new age. The original name of Lucis Trust and who created it. Founded in 1922 by Alice Bailey and Foster Bailey, originally called Lucifer Publishing Company. Shortly afterward, the name was changed to Lucis Publishing Company, and eventually the broader organization became Lucis Trust. Lucis Trust has stated that the name change was made to avoid misunderstanding and confusion surrounding the word Lucifer. Lucis Trust connection with the United Nations. Lucis Trust has held consultative status with the United Nations through ECOSOC for many years, and I forgot what that stands for. You can look that up. It sponsors educational events and discussions related to international cooperation. It hosts meditation meetings during some UN-related gatherings. Lucis Trust is not part of the UN government, nor does it direct UN policy. It is one of many non-governmental organizations, NGOs, associated with the UN system. Lucis Trust disciples, world goodwill, and world servers. Disciples, individuals studying Alice Bailey's teachings, seek spiritual growth through meditation, study, and service. Bailey taught that disciples prepare for initiation and eventually work with the spiritual hierarchy. World Goodwill, a Lucis Trust program, promotes goodwill, cooperation, and international understanding, encourages meditation and service projects. New group of world servers. I just realized I forgot to ask about triangles. Their triangles meditation group, that's important. New group of world servers, a concept introduced by Bailey. Bailey described them as people in every profession, nation, religion, and culture who can consciously or unconsciously help humanity move toward what she called the plan. Bailey said they are not necessarily members of Lucis Trust. Connection between disciples, world servers, world goodwill, and the United Nations. According to Bailey's teachings, the new group of world servers helps prepare humanity for a new civilization. World Goodwill seeks to encourage principles such as international cooperation and goodwill. Lucis Trust has participated in UN-related educational activities because it sees international cooperation as consistent with its goals. Important distinction. Bailey's writings describe a spiritual vision for humanity. There is no evidence that the UN officially adopts Bailey's esoteric teachings as its governing philosophy. I like how they always say there's no evidence. There's no evidence. There's no evidence of any jab causing harm, whatever. Okay. The UN connection to building or transforming cities. The United Nations promotes sustainable urban development through initiatives such as Sustainable Development Goals, especially SDG 11, climate resilience, affordable housing, public transportation, green infrastructure, disaster preparedness, smart city technologies in some contexts. Some researchers draw connections between Bailey's vision of a transformed civilization and modern discussions about sustainable cities. However, the UN presents these initiatives in secular terms: environment, economics, public health, infrastructure. Claims that UN urban planning is implementing Bailey's esoteric teachings are interpretations rather than established facts. You can look up Congress for New Urbanism, CNU. You might want to look into that. Who is at the top of Bailey's spiritual hierarchy? According to Alice Bailey, at the highest level of Earth's spiritual hierarchy is the Christ. However, Bailey uses this title differently than traditional Christianity. She describes the Christ as head of the spiritual hierarchy, world teacher, guide of humanity's evolution, the one expected to reappear publicly. Bailey teaches that the Christ is an office or role rather than being unique to Jesus alone. Different names Bailey associates with the world teacher. Bailey suggests that various religions have anticipated the coming of a great world leader, or a great world teacher, including Christ, Christianity, Maitreya, Buddhist tradition, Imam Mahdi, Islamic tradition, Krishna, Hindu tradition, and some of Bailey's comparative discussions, Bodhisattva, Buddhist terminology, Messiah, Judaism. She proposed that these expectations ultimately refer to the same overarching spiritual office. My eyes are getting blurry. My eyes are very blurry. Hold on. Through this view is not accepted by the mainstream forms of these religions. I might have to stop in a second. I have to keep blinking. Each of which understands these figures differently. I may have to do a second part. I don't know. Do these teachings given to Alice Bailey by these beings channeling information to her involve preparing the aura or a person's energy field in preparation for this world teacher to make its appearance? Yes. In Alice Bailey's teachings, preparation of what she calls the energy system of the human being is an important part of spiritual development. However, it is helpful to distinguish between what Bailey explicitly taught and conclusions that some readers draw from her writings. I'm having a hard time seeing. What Bailey explicitly teaches. According to Bailey's books, which she attributed to the deity or the entity Dual Master DK, is that what they call him? The aura reflects spiritual development. She describes the aura as changing as a disciple evolves spiritually. It is not simply a protective field. She portrays it as a vehicle through which spiritual energies can be received and transmitted. I want you to take this in, what is being said here. Meditation is intended to refine the energy system. Bailey taught specific forms of meditation designed to align the personality, the soul, and eventually what she calls the spiritual hierarchy. The goal is to make the disciple a more effective channel for spiritual energy. The chakras are gradually awakened. Bailey wrote extensively about the 7 major energy centers. She taught that these centers should be awakened in a controlled manner as the disciple matures spiritually. The Antakarana, I might be saying that wrong, bridge is built. One of Bailey's central teachings is constructing an inner bridge between the lower mind and the higher spiritual mind through meditation and service. This is presented as preparation for higher initiation. These are initiations. Disciples become radiatory. Bailey often says that advanced disciples develop a magnetic or radiatory aura that influences others and helps distribute spiritual energies. It kind of explains why I can feel some energy on people. So this is why I'm interested in this, digging deeper into how this happens. I do believe that we are energy. That is a fact. But I believe the information was held from us and the knowledge is being released for a reason, for a more sinister purpose. Was the preparation connected to the appearance of the world teacher? According to Bailey's own writings, yes, indirectly and in some places directly. She taught humanity must be spiritually prepared before the reappearance of the Christ, the world teacher, in her system. Groups of disciples and what she calls the new group of world servers help create the psychological and spiritual conditions for that event. Meditation, goodwill, and group work are presented as ways of making humanity more receptive to the incoming spiritual influence. Bailey also wrote that the Christ's reappearance would depend in part on humanity becoming more responsive to spiritual impression rather than solely on a fixed timetable. Did Bailey specifically say, prepare your aura for the world teacher? Not in those exact words. Instead, the progression in her writings is more like this. Purify the personality, align with the soul, refine the aura and energy centers, become receptive to spiritual impression, work as a disciple in service to humanity, help prepare the world for what she calls the reappearance of the Christ. So the preparation of the aura is one component of a much broader program of spiritual transformation rather than a standalone ritual. From a critical perspective, researchers who are critical of Bailey's teachings, particularly from a Christian perspective, often argue that these practices are not spiritually neutral. They contend that meditation, chakra work, and attempts to become receptive to guidance from spiritual beings could increase openness to spiritual influences that they believe should be approached with caution. Others, including many students of Bailey, interpret these same practices as symbolic methods of ethical and spiritual growth. If you're tracing Bailey's overall system, a useful sequence to study next would be meditation. We won't go through any of that. Hold on, let me see. I said, you mentioned that disciples or world servers may be unknowingly helping to bring about the plan. Please explain this further. Where is this mentioned on the Lucis Trust site or in their teachings? This is a very important distinction, and it is one that is often misunderstood. The phrase knowingly or unknowingly is not something critics invented. It appears in Alice Bailey's own writings and is echoed in Lucis Trust publications. However, what Bailey meant by it is worth unpacking carefully. What Bailey meant by unknowingly, according to Bailey, the new group of world servers is not limited to members of Lucis Trust. She taught that it includes people from every nation, religion, profession, and philosophy who are working toward what she regarded as humanity's spiritual evolution, even if they have never heard of Alice Bailey or Lucis Trust. Some are unknowingly helping this plan. At one point, we all may have been a little guilty of it without even knowing it. That's why you need to hold every thought captive. In Bailey's worldview, a scientist may unknowingly serve the plan. A teacher may unknowingly serve the plan. A humanitarian may unknowingly serve the plan. A government official may unknowingly serve the plan. A religious leader may unknowingly serve the plan. The key point is that in Bailey's framework, their personal awareness is not what determines whether they are participating. Rather, she believed that if their work advanced what she called the plan, they were functioning as part of the new group of world servers. I'm gonna try to hurry through this and let you read a little. Bailey even wrote that the new group of world servers would work in education, science, politics, religion, economics, arts, communications. She envisioned them influencing every area of society. I encourage you to go read this stuff yourself on the Lucis Trust website. What is the plan? One of the challenges in reading Bailey is that she rarely gives a single concise definition. Across her book, the plan generally refers to humanity evolving into greater spiritual consciousness, increased international unity and cooperation, the externalization, open manifestation of the spiritual hierarchy, preparation for the reappearance of the Christ world teacher in Bailey's system, the establishment of what she called the kingdom of God on earth, understood in an esoteric rather than traditional Christian sense. I hope you're taking in what this is saying. Does Lucis Trust explicitly connect this to the return of the Christ? Yes. For example, a Lucis Trust Easter Festival transcript states that the new group of world servers are the group forerunner for the Christ in their worldwide work. They knowingly or unknowingly are preparing a pathway of light for his return. This reflects Bailey's teaching that the work of the new group of world servers helps prepare humanity for the reappearance of the Christ as understood in her esoteric system. Does Bailey say the hierarchy is guiding this process? Yes. In Discipleship in the New Age, Bailey writes the new group of world servers is working in collaboration with the hierarchy under the guidance of the Christ himself. She also describes this as part of the planned activity leading toward the emergence of a new spiritual era. Putting it all together, according to Bailey's teachings, the spiritual hierarchy formulates the plan. The Christ, the world teacher, heads the hierarchy. The masters guide disciples. The new group of world servers carries ideas into the world. Many members of this group may be aware of Bailey's teachings, while others may participate without realizing it because Bailey believed their work still advanced the plan. Their overall purpose is to prepare humanity for what Bailey called the reappearance of the Christ and the transition into a new age. One important clarification is that these points describe Alice Bailey and Lucis Trust's own teachings. Whether those teachings accurately describe reality or whether individuals or institutions outside Lucis Trust are in fact participating in such a plan is a separate question that goes beyond what the available evidence can establish. Explain how this plan involves technology. How does the human body and technology play a part in the plan? This is an area where it's important to separate what Alice Bailey and Lucis Trust actually teach from later interpretations that connect those teachings to modern technology. Short answer: Alice Bailey did not teach that the human body would be technologically integrated with computers, AI implants, or digital networks. Those are modern ideas that are often connected to her teachings by critics, but they are not explicit in her books. Instead, Bailey's plan primarily involves the evolution of human consciousness. What Bailey did teach about technology. Bailey viewed science and technology as tools that could aid humanity's evolution if used wisely. She wrote that scientific discoveries are part of humanity's unfolding evolution. Communications technology helps unite humanity. Transportation reduces barriers between nations. Science can reveal deeper spiritual laws. Electricity and energy research would become increasingly important. She generally saw advances in science as potentially serving what she called the plan by bringing humanity into greater interconnection. The human body, in Bailey's teaching, the human body plays a role, but primarily as an energetic and spiritual instrument, not as a technological device. Bailey described several interconnected vehicles: physical body, etheric body, energy body, emotional astral body, mental body, and soul. A major focus of her teachings is the refinement and alignment of these subtle bodies. She discusses chakras, energy centers, the etheric body, the aura, meditation, spiritual energies flowing through the energy centers. In her framework, these are the means by which higher spiritual energies influence human consciousness. And let me intercede here and say that someone referring to themselves as a divine conduit would apply here. Okay, Bailey's vision of the future. Bailey anticipated greater global cooperation, worldwide communication, scientific discoveries about energy, increasing understanding of the etheric body, closer cooperation between science and spirituality. She believed science would eventually recognize subtle energies that, in her view, underlie physical existence. Sorry about that. Where modern technology enters the discussion, many contemporary writers, both supporters and critics, have drawn parallels between Bailey's ideas and technologies such as artificial intelligence, brain-computer interfaces, digital identity systems, smart cities, biotechnology, neural interfaces, global communications networks. However, these are interpretations rather than teachings Bailey explicitly laid out. She wrote decades before such technologies existed in their modern forms. Why people connect Bailey to technology. Several themes in Bailey's work lend themselves to these comparisons. Humanity becoming increasingly interconnected, a vision of globally coordinated civilization, the importance of communication, the concept of humanity functioning as an integrated whole, scientific progress being incorporated into human evolution. Some readers see these themes as broadly compatible with modern technological trends, while others see no necessary connection. The externalization of the hierarchy. One of Bailey's major books is The Externalization of the Hierarchy. In it, she argues that humanity is moving toward a time when the spiritual hierarchy will work more openly in the world. She identifies developments such as better education, international cooperation, improved communication, scientific advancement, goodwill between nations. These are presented as signs that humanity is becoming more receptive to the plan. The emphasis remains on consciousness and social development rather than on technological modification of the human body. Summary. According to Bailey's own writings, the human body is important because of its subtle energy systems, the etheric body, chakras, aura. Science and technology can support humanity's development and greater global interconnectedness. Communication technologies may help create conditions for international cooperation. Bailey does not explicitly teach that the plan requires people to merge biologically with machines, receive implants, or connect their bodies to technological networks. Many discussions that link Bailey's teachings directly to transhumanism, AI, or body network integration are interpretive arguments made by later authors rather than statements found explicitly in Bailey's published works. Distinguishing between Bailey's documented teachings and later interpretations helps keep the discussion grounded in the available evidence. I'm having a hard time here. And then I said, on the Lucis Trust site, they discuss technology and the plan. Please elaborate on what this means. This is one of the more unusual sections of the Lucis Trust website because it blends esoteric spirituality with discussions of modern technology. The key is to read it within Bailey's symbolic worldview rather than as a conventional engineering discussion. The article you're referring to is Technology and the Plan. In the Electric Bridge, it's in the Electric Bridge section of the Lucis Trust website. Electricity is viewed as a spiritual principle. So this is important because we're being told that science is just science. There's nothing spiritual behind it. This would show otherwise. Or her view, Lucis Trust view, is totally different. Electricity is viewed as a spiritual principle. Now remember, they are an NGO with the United Nations, which is also part of the reason we are building our smart cities. Okay, just keep that in mind. Electricity is viewed as a spiritual principle. The article begins with this striking statement: electricity is the life force of divinity, and the harnessing and directing of electrical behavior is all part of the divine plan. In Bailey's philosophy, electricity is not merely a physical phenomenon. It is seen as an expression of divine life and consciousness. The article suggests that when humanity learns to understand and direct electrical forces, it is participating in a larger spiritual process. Technology is presented as more than useful tools. The article argues that beneath the development of computers, mobile phones, and the internet is what it calls arcane process. Have you heard the word arcane? Might want to look that up. It even describes the movement of electricity through silicon circuits as having the rudiments of ceremony and ritual. Okay. Really take in what's being said here. Within this worldview, electricity represents spiritual life. Silicon chips become symbolic vehicles for directing that life. Technological progress is interpreted as part of humanity's spiritual evolution. This is an esoteric interpretation rather than a scientific claim. Technology is portrayed as helping unify humanity. Throughout Bailey's writings, one recurring theme is that humanity must increasingly function as one interconnected organism. Modern technology is therefore viewed positively because it connects people globally, spreads ideas rapidly, increases international cooperation, reduces barriers between cultures, prepares humanity for greater unity. Lucis Trust frequently links these developments to what it calls the unfolding of the divine plan. The human being is described as an electrical organism. This is where the teachings become more esoteric. Bailey repeatedly taught that humans consist of a physical body, an etheric energy body, chakras, an aura, subtle energies flowing through the nervous system. Within that framework, humanity is viewed as fundamentally electrical or energetic. The Electric Bridge articles explore parallels between electrical science and these esoteric ideas. Now, people that study the esoteric ideas, they know exactly what this is for. Does Lucis Trust teach humans should merge with technology? This is where careful distinction is important. I have not found Lucis Trust explicitly teaching that people should become cyborgs, receive implants, or merge biologically with computers. Instead, their published material emphasizes understanding electricity spiritually, viewing technology as part of humanity's evolution, using technology to foster global interconnectedness, seeing scientific discovery as compatible with spiritual evolution. Those points are documented on this site. Why some readers see a connection to transhumanism. Some critics connect Bailey's writings with modern ideas such as AI, brain-computer interfaces, neural networks, digital identity, smart cities, biotechnology. The reasoning is that Bailey envisioned an interconnected humanity, increasing scientific understanding of energy, a future civilization built around unity, the evolution of consciousness. However, those technological applications are interpretations by later commentators. Bailey herself did not describe modern digital implants or brain interfaces. Well, she didn't know about it back then either. Okay, the broader goal of the plan. Across Lucis Trust publications, the plan is presented as the gradual emergence of a more unified humanity, greater goodwill, international cooperation, spiritual evolution, preparation for the reappearance of the Christ under Bailey's esoteric understanding, and what they describe as a new civilization based on spiritual principles. Technology is portrayed as one of the forces that can assist that transition when directed toward those ends. One observation, one interesting aspect of technology in the plan article is that it does not treat technology as spiritually neutral. Instead, it frames developments in electricity, computing, and communications as having esoteric significance. That is, as participating in humanity's spiritual evolution, because they increase connection, coordination, and the transmission of what Bailey called spiritual energies. Let's break down each section in an easy to understand format for people. Okay, according to Bailey's unseen spiritual beings, the spiritual hierarchy are guiding humanity toward a new stage of evolution. In simple terms, God has a plan for humanity. Spiritual beings called the hierarchy oversee the plan. Their goal is to help humanity evolve into a more spiritually aware civilization. Eventually, the world teacher, the Christ in Bailey's terminology, will openly guide humanity. Humanity is gradually being prepared for that future. Bailey believed that humanity must change in several ways: become more globally united, work together instead of fighting, develop a higher consciousness, show more goodwill towards others, unite science and spirituality, better understand energy and the hidden forces of nature. That's important. They need you to know that. While technology matters, Bailey did not see technology as just machines. She believed technology could help fulfill the plan because it connects people around the world, allows ideas to spread quickly, makes global cooperation easier, helps humanity function as one interconnected civilization. I know I'm just repeating some of those. Where does the human body fit? Bailey taught that the people are more than physical bodies. She believed every person has a physical body, an energy body, etheric body, an aura, chakras, energy centers, a soul. She believed these work together. As someone develops spiritually, their aura changes, their chakras become more active, they become more responsive to spiritual influence. They can, in Bailey's view, transmit spiritual energy to others. Why prepare the aura? According to Bailey, the aura isn't prepared simply to feel better. It is developed so a disciple can receive spiritual impression, work with higher spiritual energies, help carry out the plan, eventually assist in preparing humanity for the reappearance of the world teacher. I'm just going to scroll through a little bit. We're just going to jump right into, you can pause if you need to read that. Let's unpack the electric bridge teachings. I think that's a good idea. The electric bridge series can be difficult to follow because it mixes science, symbolism, and esoteric beliefs. Breaking it into small pieces helps separate what the authors are claiming from what is established science. Let's start with the first major idea. Part 1, technology and the plan. What does Lucis Trust say? One of the opening ideas is electricity is more than a physical force. It is an expression of divine life. This is a foundational belief in Bailey's esoteric system. In plain English, Lucis Trust is saying electricity isn't just something that powers lights. It is viewed as the life force behind creation. Everything in the universe is ultimately energetic. Technology represents humanity learning to work with that universal energy. I'm having problems seeing. This is a metaphysical belief, not a scientific conclusion. Why is this important? According to Bailey, as humanity learns to understand electricity, it also begins to understand spiritual energy. This leads humanity closer to what they call the plan. How is technology viewed? Most people see technology as computers, phones, satellites, AI, internet. Bailey's framework says these are more than inventions. They are signs that humanity is becoming increasingly interconnected. The underlying idea is greater connection, greater unity, greater spiritual evolution. What does the electric bridge mean? I might have to stop in a second. This is having a hard time seeing. The title itself is symbolic. Think of it this way. Bridge number 1. Technology connects person to person through internet, phones, satellites, computers. I'm not sure why it's showing up like this. Okay. I don't remember it saying it, showing it like this. Just go ahead and pause if you need to. The article mentions silicon. One sentence has drawn attention because it says the movement of electricity through silicon has the rudiments of ceremony and ritual. Taken literally, this does not mean that the computer chip is performing an occult ritual. Rather, the author is drawing a symbolic comparison. Just as ritual directs spiritual energy in Bailey's worldview, electrical circuits direct electrical energy in technology. It's an esoteric analogy, not a scientific statement. Go ahead and pause if you need to. Where does the human body enter? This is where the series becomes especially interesting. Bailey teaches that the human nervous system carries electrical impulses. The etheric body distributes subtle energy. Chakras receive and transmit spiritual energy. The aura radiates the energy. See, they need you to know this. They want you to know this. Just remember that. The Electric Bridge articles explore parallels between these ideas and modern electrical technology. However, they stop short of saying that humans should merge physically with machines. Instead, they emphasize analogy. Both the body in Bailey's esoteric model and technology are seen as systems that transmit energy or information. An interesting observation. One recurring pattern in Bailey's writings is the repeated use of network language. She describes networks of disciples, networks of meditation groups, networks of goodwill, planetary centers, energy centers in the human body, communication systems, and later discussions of electrical and technological networks. Within her own worldview, these are interconnected metaphors that express the idea of increasing integration and communication. Whether those metaphors correspond to external reality is a matter of interpretation rather than something established by evidence. I think what I'm going to do is I'm going to go ahead and stop here, and I'll try to do another video. I hope that over time I've just figured out how to make longer videos and add them to my social media platforms, so I'll be working on that a little bit at a time. I have a lot going on at home. Please use discernment. There are a lot of people helping to bring about this plan. Some knowingly and some unknowingly. You have to use discernment right now.